The Choose Love movement offers no-cost solutions that keep our kids safe, providing them with the skills and tools they need to flourish. Join us in our mission to create the world we want to live in, one that's connected and compassionate. Check us out at chooselovemovement.org. Together, we can choose love.
Rick, oh my gosh, it is so nice to have you here. Thank you so much for first of all, for all that you do for Choose Love, which is so much. Rick Rood is the ambassador in New Mexico, but he travels all over teaching Choose Love professional development. In fact, he and I just met in New Jersey at a school where I was giving a convocation talk and he was giving training. So Rick is all over the place for Choose Love. We so appreciate him. He has a professional coaching whole series that is going to be offered soon. And just, I'm thrilled to have you here, Rick. Thank you for being on the Choose Love podcast. You know,
pleasure is mine.
Thank you. And so I want to get into the story about how you found Choose Love and why it resonated with you and all your thoughts, because you have incredible experience. You have been in teaching and professional coaching for educators and administrators and leadership groups for over 30 years. So you have a lot of experience in this, certainly much more than I do. I've only been really in the education space for the last 10 years, except being a mom for 23 years. That counts a little bit, but so your high performance coaching. And I love a quote that's on your website. You say, great teachers are constantly present to the fact that their actions matter greatly. And I love that because, of course, all of our actions, our thoughts that impact our feelings, that then impact our actions, matter greatly, not only to ourselves, but to those around us. And that ripples out into what we see in the world. But tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and so that we can get to know Rick Rood.
Okay. Well, I mean, about that quote, I mean, one thing that I've seen a lot is when you're in the teaching space, there's a lot of pressure and demands put on you and paperwork and this, and, you know, sometimes you feel like you're the nurse and you're the janitor and you're everything else in addition to being a teacher. That can get overwhelming. And I think a lot of times, you know, without intentionally reminding ourselves, we sort of lose the trees for the forest, or however that saying goes. And we forget that, and this always humbles me when I think of it, but anybody that's been in teaching for longer than a year or so, there is someone, I can guarantee it, there is one student at least that comes to school because of you. And you know, when we lose that, then we're less intentional and we don't perform at our highest. And so I always try and remind myself, I have an alarm on my cell phone here that goes off 4 times a day. And it's just a little text reminder that says, you know, you matter. Here's what you're up to in the world. Don't forget that. And, you know, and so I have it on vibrate, obviously, because we can't run around with our phones all day in the classroom. But, you know, I feel that vibrate in my pocket and I'm like, that's right. That's why I'm here. Okay. So, you know, just stop and think, what am I thinking? How am I thinking? Am I serving as greatly as I can in this moment? Because there are times you're just frustrated, or you're upset by, you know, something the administration does, or the kids aren't behaving, or whatever. And it's easy to sort of slide into, you know, reaction mode. And it's much more important, you know, we talk in Choose Love about that choice moment, you know, and when that alarm goes off, that's a choice moment. Am I going to go ahead and intentionally remember, this is what I'm up to in the world? Or am I just going to let it slide and let, you know, reaction rule the day? And that's, you know, that, I think for teachers, that's the choice that happens for them every single day. You know, because it's so easy to react. It's so easy to get frustrated. And, you know, just having that reminder, just, you know, I have a very clear sense of purpose, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm up to in the world. And so I'm going to intentionally change how I'm interacting with these students. So
That is so
but
beautiful. And we forget that it's a choice. And,
exactly.
or we forget, or we say to ourselves, we make an excuse and we go, yeah, but
Right.
this is what, like, you don't understand, this is what's at. No, it doesn't matter. You work from your executive functioning part of your brain, your prefrontal cortex. That's what we have as human beings, that gives us a choice in any situation, circumstance, or interaction on how to thoughtfully respond. And that is being your highest and best self. And I've really started to say that a lot too, Rick. I liken it to the moment, really, I call it my firehouse moment, when we had, all the children had been evacuated to the firehouse going back to the Sandy Hook tragedy. And JT had asked if he could wait with us, and me not having any
Right.
idea of the outcome, and allowed him to come into the worst day of our lives. And then just trying to be present, knowing that that was important. And then that allowing me to realize I am modeling for JT
Yeah.
in the moment how to thoughtfully respond with to a scary situation, to trauma, to tragedy, to pain. And that awareness helped me rise to the occasion and be the best version of myself. And I have to remind myself, and by the way, I have to have other people remind me. And I joke about it,
Right.
and it is funny, but it's true. Even though I'm the choose love lady, I have moments, and even days where I get stuck in the muddle and I forget it's a choice, but I have these skills and tools I can go back to. It doesn't feel good when you're in that position. You are not in control, but you can take control back by making choices and using your skills and tools that Choose Love teaches.
Exactly. And I think you hit on a huge point when you talked about role modeling. And that's one of the things. I send little memes out into the Facebook universe every now and then. But that's one of the things, is when I talk about the 4 ingredients of Choose Love in these little posts, I'm always saying, how are you teaching compassion, but also how are you modeling it for your students? How are you teaching forgiveness, but also how are you modeling it? There's my favorite, I think is my favorite quote in the whole world. I don't know, there's so many, right? But it's there's that book, All I Needed to Know I
There
Learned
are.
in Kindergarten, by Robert Fulghum. And one of the quotes that he has that's always stuck with me, in fact, on my personal email, it's my little tagline at the bottom. But he said, "Don't worry that the kids aren't listening to you. Worry that they're always watching you." So
Mm.
you gotta, as a teacher and as a leader and as someone that lives by the Choose Love principles, you've always got to think, am I taking on a role model mentality? Because it's a completely different mentality. And in a lot of the personal development work I've done, um, that keeps coming up in every course and every workshop and every little conference I go to. There's always someone saying, are you adopting a role model mentality? Are you thinking like a role model? So that's a huge thing. That's a huge part of it. And you're right. Everybody gets stuck in the mud. It's just, I can't remember the graphic that I saw, but 90% of life is our response to the 10% that we can't control. you know I can't control the weather, I can't control the traffic, I can't, there's so many things out of my control, and a lot of people just fixate on those. And we need to just fixate on the other 90%. Okay, so this happened, what am I going to do? I mean, it reminds me of a news program. I don't know if you remember the Northridge earthquake in California. I don't know, like 20 years ago now. But all the freeways were just completely messed up and jammed. And this reporter was walking car to car to all these angry people trying to get into LA to work. And, one woman is really angry and, "Oh, I hate this, and can't they fix the roads, and what's wrong?" And the guy behind him was like just peaceful, sipping his coffee. He says, "You know what? I can't control this road, but I've got my language tapes. I'm learning a new language while I'm sitting in this traffic, and I'm just going to make the best of what's happening." And, there's
Yeah.
no right or wrong answer, but but isn't life a lot easier and sweeter if you just take on that, okay, this is something I can't control. I love the serenity prayer, give me the wisdom to know what I can't control, and the courage to control what I can.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And the largest of which is we can't control one another. So, but we can control ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
when we remember that, it gives us our personal power back. And except that, we're all seeing the world from a different lens, that lens of our childhood experience, our
Mm-hmm.
own traumas, our lived experience, so the wisdom we have from both good and bad experiences. And so you see something much differently than I do, just like sitting in traffic. Now that comes from those people's experiences, the skills and tools, the social and emotional skills and tools that they have. You saw that in the second guy. You saw more of a trauma reaction in the woman. And the key is, I think, to, especially when you're older, it's great when you can get them young, but now to learn the skills and tools so that you can take control, you can realize what's going on in your brain, and you can pause it. And then, because you're when you're having a response like that, you're coming from your fear center, and the blood flow to your prefrontal cortex, where logic and reasoning is, and by the way, where the brake is on that fear center, is not operational. So this choice moment that we've been talking about is where you pause and you give yourself some time to switch back on that prefrontal cortex, so you can be making the highest and best and most informed, thoughtful response. And of course, that's always love, I guess, unless you're running from something, that is life threatening. And then that is also love for yourself, by the way.
Right.
But most of the time, thank goodness, knock on wood, 99.99999% of our day, even 100% of our day, is not running from threats. It is facing challenges that can help us become our highest and best self, help us learn, grow, and be strengthened. And so that's what Choose Love does. And that's what you do. And that's what you've actually been doing for 30 years with your students and your coaching clients. And we're so excited that you're going to be doing this for Choose Love as well. And so just curious about, Rick, how did you come to being a teacher and getting into coaching? I mean, that's a little bit above and beyond. And then after that, what drew you to Choose Love?
Okay. That's a long question. So I guess first
It is a long
teaching.
question, so you take the next 20 minutes.
So yeah, started teaching. It's funny. I was actually a junior in high school, and I went to a small school where it was K through 12, and this, I guess this will date me pretty well. Computers were brand new, and the school had just bought this 2 or 3 Apple computers and called it a computer lab. And they found out they had nobody that understood computers or how to teach it. And so they piloted a 5th grade computer program, and they tapped me and one of my friends that were senior or juniors at the time in high school. And they said, hey, we'll pay you like whatever, $5 an hour if you want to come teach these 5th graders an hour a day for computers. And so I and Melanie, my friend, both gave up our lunch times for the rest of the year and went and taught that. And it was just so awesome to see everything light up. And since then, I've been involved teaching kids. When I was in college, I had a job as a music teacher at a preschool, and that bloomed into a business later once I got out of college, and I was traveling around to all over the Bay Area doing music classes for kids, for preschoolers and elementary schools. So I did music for a while, and then for a long time I worked in the after school program area, where I eventually was a director of a medium-sized on-site after-school center for about 20 years. And that was a lot of fun. I've taught at charter schools, at private schools, at public schools. So it's just been It's been fun. I obviously have a real passion. I think one of my strengths is I communicate well with kids. And so that is just sort of a natural thing. But how I got into training and coaching is, I don't know, long about 10 years into the journey, um, every school has professional development. And for whatever reason, our school couldn't find appropriate professional development. They sent us to a conference 2 years in a row. And I love this organization too. So I'm not bad mouthing them, but it's the National Association for the Education of Young Children. Anyone who's in preschool has heard of them. But that was the problem, is here we were teaching elementary and they're sending us to a preschool conference. And I remember just sitting in the back of these workshop rooms, just like poke my eyes out now because I can't take this anymore. It was like a 2-day conference. It was like 16 hours of
Wow.
sitting in these ballrooms and not really getting a whole lot of info that was pertinent to our job. And the spark came at the end when I was like, I could do this, because I have a lot of great ideas, and a lot of the ideas I came from we all have these critical incidents in our lives. So mine is trying to remember what year it was, probably 1990 or 1991. I went to a Tony Robbins, the Unleash the Power Within conference, which was just like a 3-day conference in San Francisco. And that's the one where at the end of the deal, they have you walk across a bed of hot coals, and the point is not to learn new party skills, I guess, but it's just to prove that your mind does control your reality. And I remember
Yeah.
leaving that completely changed. And the thing was, and it wasn't today like that he still does that workshop, but it's in an arena with 30,000 people. I was lucky. He was still just sort of the guy hawking tapes on late night TV at that point. So there were only about 500 of us. But I looked around that room, and everybody in that room almost was a business person, or they were involved in multi-level marketing, or they were a real estate agent, just totally business focused. And I'm sitting there as a teacher going, man, if every teacher could hear this message and just get a piece of this, man, we could transform education. We could just change the whole thing. And so I started, really that began my journey of self-development. And I, enrolled with other leaders at the time, Jack Canfield, who wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. A lot of people don't know this. He was a teacher before he did all that in Santa Barbara. And so, immediately connected with him, Brendan Burchard, Jim Rohn, and just begin this development. And all the while I'm thinking, if teachers only knew this stuff, like their jobs would be amazing. They would be creating this huge change in the world. So I said, you know what? I'm going to go ahead. And I'd never really done public speaking before. And I said, there was a group called the California School Age Consortium. And I applied to speak and give a workshop at one of their conferences in Pasadena. And boy, oh boy, was I nervous. I had on a 3-piece suit, and it was like, and people that know me, I don't really ever wear 3-piece suits. But I remember just being like scared to death. There's probably got into this workshop, and there's probably 150 people in there, and it's hot, 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 and I'm all sweating in this wool suit. But they heard what I said, and they liked it, and they said, yeah, this is going to make a huge difference. And so since then I've been speaking at conferences and workshops. It's funny, I was just speaking at the NAEYC conference last February, so that was kind of fun. Probably be the one in Pasadena this year. But so I got into training people on these basic ideas that are coming from positive psychology and neurolinguistic programming. And so I've been teaching that since I did that first workshop back in 1999. And then I got into coaching as well. One of my mentors, a man by the name of Brendan Burchard, offered a coaching program. He has what was called high performance coaching, which is a scientifically backed coaching program that he spent years developing, and was based out of this longitudinal study of what makes people high performers. And he had people from every walk of life, from like 100 different countries, and just followed them And so he put this program together, and it was actually my wife, because I was like, I don't know if I want to do this, because it's a big commitment, and and to get trained, it's like this intensive. I have to go back every year for a week, and it's like 7 a.m. to 8 or 9 p.m. every day. We have a little break for lunch, but so it's this intensive training with other really high level coaches, who you're learning from, who you're practicing with, and then of course the wisdom, coming from Brennan and the stage talking about things. And so my wife pushed me. She said, Rick, and I have to say now, I have to give a shout out to my wife. I have the most wonderful, amazing wife in the world. She believes in me when I don't. She's the most loving person I know. And so she said, yeah,
We
Rick,
love you, Mr.
I
Rood.
think you
Thank
would.
you for helping Rick.
She sort of said, I think you would be an amazing coach. And she had been a coach with a group called Landmark before, so she knew some things about coaching. And I said, okay, well, I'll go for it, and we'll see what happens. And it's just been really transforming, because one of the things that a lot of people that hire a coach don't know is the coach is growing at the same time. It's like this symbiotic
Mm.
relationship. And so that's where we were. That was 2018 that I got my initial certification there. And then in 2019, we pulled the family up out of California. It just got too expensive, and we moved to New Mexico, where we are here in Albuquerque now. And I had sort of semi-retired, and we got here and like, hey, see what we got for jobs. And that's where I was led to this awesome school here in Albuquerque called Mission Achievement Charter School. And that's where I met you. The MAS Charter
Mhm.
School was one of the earliest adopters of the Choose Love program, and the principal there, Joanne, was just so
One of the first
dynamic and
four.
so one of the first. Wow, I didn't know it was like that. Wow, she was
Yeah.
just so on fire about personal development, and we really need to bring this Choose Love message to the kids, and at that school, it was a pretty mixed bag. There were a lot of low income students, not everybody, but so you had kids coming from broken homes, kids with food insecurity, didn't know where their next meal was coming from, kids that were experiencing homelessness. And so you have all these kids that you think would be like these little hard-boiled kids, with attitudes, and they just soaked up that message, the Choose Love message, and it was just awesome to see. And the other thing that really just sort of sparked it for me was, as a teacher, as I went through the curriculum, I realized that what the Choose Love and you were saying in the Choose Love program is exactly, almost to a T, the same thing that I've been saying since 1999, in terms of just being intentional on how you think. You control, your own life, even if you don't feel like it sometimes.
Mhm.
Just those basic messages. And I said, hey, I found my tribe here. This is awesome. So
Mhm.
that wasn't
Yeah,
exactly
you
the
definitely.
Reader's Digest version, but that's where I got how I am. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you definitely did find your tribe with that. And I think what people don't realize is, and what I didn't realize as an adult, is that it actually takes work to be the best version of yourself. You can go along the trajectory of simply reacting, and taking a passive role in life, but you are not going to be creating your best life. You are not going to be the best version of yourself unless you do some, and for lack of a better word, I would say seeking of information on what that looks like. And I started to do that before Jesse's death, because I had a divorce, I had a really bad breakup, and I was in a position where really, I didn't know it then, but every decision I'd ever made was out of fear. And when Jesse died, I realized that, wow, fear controls me. And every decision that I made relationship decisions. Those are big decisions.
Yeah.
I have two boys. They have different dads, and both relationships out of fear. Every job I ever took, and the jobs that I had, I completely undersold myself because I didn't have a sense of self-worth, and I didn't even know it. And so I just took what was available, even though those people didn't value me the way that they should, because I didn't value myself. All this stuff was going on unbeknownst to me. And then bam, Jesse's murdered. And I have this moment where I realize there is no roadmap for where I'm going. There's nobody to lead me by the hand and say, this is exactly what you need to do. Just follow me, do these decisions. It's, going to be okay. But in itself was a little exciting because I realized, wow, it's up to me. I get to choose if I have joy and fun in my life going forward, or I could be miserable. Like, it's my choice. And that was so enlightening to me. And then, realizing, well, okay, so I've lived what maybe is in the back of every parent's mind, their worst fear. So I've lived it. So what do I have to be afraid of? I'm just going to live my life choosing love. And that's the way it's going to be. And it doesn't mean that that's a perfect trajectory, because life throws you curveballs, and it has for me the last 10 years. I mean, we're on this planet to learn and grow, and difficulty is an opportunity for growth. And once you realize that, it takes some of the fear away, and fear inhibits learning, growth, and healing as well. So so important to have this, and for anybody that's listening, to invest in yourself. And when I say invest, I mean time, I mean effort, and I mean money too, to really live your best life. You have one life to live, and you have so much potential in you. Why not be the best version of yourself? Why not live with absolutely no regrets? And there's a way to do that. And Rick, you hold the key to that. And I believe Choose Love holds the key to that as well. And so you've actually created this coaching program that we're going to be piloting and launching. So depending on when you hear this, you'll probably be able to find it on the website if you're interested. And it really takes you through everything that we've been talking about, everything, to give you kind of this is kind of a roadmap that didn't exist before you created it with all of your 30 years of experience. And then what we have with Choose Love, and it literally takes you into, and it's, really not only for, but, you are an educator with all that experience and helping teachers be the best version of themselves. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's in that coaching program?
Yeah. Well, I mean, basically what's in the coaching program is sort of an advanced deep dive into the 4 ingredients, where we're talking about courage, where we're talking about gratitude, and really going deep. What does it mean? How do you get it? Forgiveness, compassion, and action. And then overlaying that with some of the basic principles that I know, if anyone that's been through the curriculum, that they're hearing sort of the undertone of supporting, number one, children and youth are people, and we need to treat them as such. A lot of times we homogenize groups and try and herd cats, and that never turns out well. Understanding
Right.
understanding that our ultimate purpose when we're in a youth facing professional position is we're guides. We're not managers. And I always say this, and some people get upset, especially teachers, like, one of the things I think that really, really just kills me is how they still call it behavior management. And it's just like you said earlier, you can't make anybody else do anything. Anybody that's ever had a 2-year-old knows this, right? It's always like a choice. when you're with kids. So are you going to guide them, or are you going to manage them? And I always say, if you want a job managing people, go sign up at McDonald's, because you can have a lot of practice managing people. I always say, manage all the things. I manage my classroom, I manage the environment of the classroom, I manage our schedule. But when it comes to dealing with people, you have to guide them, because as soon as someone feels like they're being managed, they're going to push back. So really, I think that whole idea of guiding is very similar or the same as just choosing love in the moment and saying, here I am, I'm here for you. I'm teaching and nursing, and I'm sure there's other professions, but those are the two main ones that I can think of. I have this thing I teach in some of my workshops called the mountain pathway theory. And, we're all just sort of thrown on this mountain called life, no instruction manual, just here, go have fun, right? And those two professions, teaching and nursing, are about the only ones I can think of where you're on the mountain trying to figure out your own way, but you're still looking back with a helping hand for someone else. Say, hey, you know what? There's some thorn bushes here. Let me help you around those, right? Here's, if you want to see a cool lake, it's up here. And so we're helping really guide the next
Watch out for
generation that comes up behind
rattlesnakes.
us. Yes, watch out for rattlesnakes. But yeah, so I think that, it's really important that we understand our role as guides. And again, that doesn't, I get a lot of pushback from some teachers about the management thing. And I tell them, go ahead and manage all the things. Do it, because you need to do that. You have to have an organized classroom to be, effective in getting, a schedule set where kids are learning. But, when it comes to dealing with the kids, you're their guide. And it's just, I remember 2 or 3 teachers that I had growing up that changed the trajectory of my life, right? And are very much the reason that I became a teacher. And in every workshop I do, I always ask, like, and it's teachers that are in the audience. I ask, how many of you guys had a teacher that you just remember and they changed your life? And almost every hand goes up every single time. So teachers, if you're watching this, we're having an impact. You don't always know it, because, you don't, it's not always expressed to you. But, take my belief and put it on that, if you've been at this for any time, you have transformed somebody's life. You are probably in the process of transforming someone's life right now. And I remember when that hit me, it was pretty early on in my career. And there was this girl that I had in kindergarten class. And, we had a good relationship, just felt like normal, like all the other kids. Well, we get to the 5th grade graduation, and I don't know how it is in other parts of the country. In California, they make a huge big deal of 5th grade graduation, with the caps and gowns and the procession and, pomp and circumstance and all that. So everyone gets to go, all the 5th graders get to give up and give a little speech. And this girl, Ariella, got up and, while all the other kids are thanking their, their parents, whatever, she said, I would not have made it, because I was so sad and depressed about my parents' divorce, without Mr. Rood. And I was just standing there, I'm like, what? What? I couldn't believe it, because I had no idea that I had had this impact on her life, and of course I had her in kindergarten. I'd seen her around the school for the next 5 years. But I mean, again, that sort of thing just sort of humbles you, and it helps that intention that we talked about of what you're up to right now. I know that there are kids in my class that I am impacting in a positive way. I don't know who they are, really. I suspect a couple, but just knowing that you have this lever of influence, and that's why it just breaks my heart sometimes to see the teachers that, that yell or shame, because that's also having an impact. Because I remember a couple teachers like that I had, and they're not happy memories. So always remember, so any teachers watching, always remember, you are having an impact every single day with every action that you take. And that's why it's so important to be intentional. And I think that it all comes down to intention. Teachers talk about that all the time, about the curriculum, and about, the schedule and all that, but they don't seem to translate that as easily over to how am I showing up today? And and one of my mentors has this great saying, but I try to remind myself daily, and I post it on my blog and all that, but is your students need you on your A game. You may not know which ones. There's some that are all right, but there may be one that's parents are going through a divorce. There may be a student that's experiencing homelessness and you don't know it, and they need you on your A game.
Hmm. Hmm. And that starts young. When we did the Choose Love bus tour throughout New Hampshire, and I we had a courage table, and we partnered with local law enforcement, and they would help the kids talk about how courage is not being afraid. That's a lot of knots in there. Isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing it anyway. And what perfect heroes to be teaching the kids that. And so the kids would come up and they would do brave breaths, which is something a big part of the Choose Love programming, as well as brave poses. And some kids would just come up to the table and lay down. I mean, like lay down on the floor, like, and your actions are showing how you're feeling and what you're thinking. In the forgiveness table, the things that the kids were writing were just, I couldn't believe at 6 years old, the shame, blame, pain that these kids, guilt that these kids were feeling. And then, of course, they would forgive themselves or they would forgive others, and they would crumple that pain up that they had put on the paper, and then throw it away into a garbage can labeled self or other to let go of that pain. But like a little 6-year-old girl coming up, and I talk about this, but it was so shocking to me. I am so sorry, SORE, for FORE, everything I done. So sorry. And it's like, you are 6 years old. What could you possibly have done that you are going to take with you? Perhaps that's shame for the rest of your life. And I would have just broken down bawling, but this little girl, she crumpled it up and she threw it away in the bin labeled self. And so she found relief. But we took those messages and we gave them to the teachers. And they said, during their meetings, that they were going to read them to remind themselves of the level of stuff, difficulty, challenges that our kids are facing at such a young age, to remind themselves and give them, I guess, fuel to be able to not react when you see behavior, but to thoughtfully respond with love. And that means using the formula. That means gratitude, forgiveness, and compassion. That is a thoughtful response. And when you do that, by the way, as you said earlier on, you help and heal yourself. And you said a lot. I just want to go back to behavioral management, because I was making notes when you were saying that, because that is what, when I'm out and about, a lot of schools are asking for.
Yeah,
behavioral management programs.
Yeah, they call it that. And I was
just going to say that. Go ahead.
Oh, so no, I was going to say that, that's the first thing I get, because honestly, for the workshops I do, 80% of the requests I get are about behavior. So there's definitely a need. But I always tell them, and I always say it in the workshop too, and I always tell whoever's booking the workshop, let's change the language, because language is important. Language creates our reality. Let's stop calling it behavior management and let's call it behavior guidance. And just that one simple semantic shift opens up so many possibilities for how teachers think about behavior. And it's true. We do see tons of behavior that comes to us in the classroom, and COVID, as has just only multiplied that. But there's the camp of teachers, and this is my one frustration. It's hard for me not to be angry with them. But there's one camp of teachers, like, and their whole mantra is, "Whoa, well, not my job. Their parents should have taught them better. They should have learned more manners." And you see this on, you know, boards on the internet. You hear this at the water cooler. Man, that parent just sucks. And I always try and remember that, just like me, everybody in this world is doing the best they can with the tools they have. So you can blame the parent, and certainly there's, blame to go around, or you can say, here's this kid, and this is what I can do to be a positive influence, right? Because going and blaming, I mean, you may be right, but does it advance anything? Does it help anything? And my answer would be absolutely not. It just sort of makes you feel better, I guess, to, sometimes when you're criticizing other people. But, and it's important to work with those families too, and that's, I guess that's another frustrating part of the job is, sometimes you have families that just, they aren't listening, and it's hard, but you have your choices is that you can sit there and blame them and tell, in your head, talk about what a terrible, worthless parent they are, or you can say, what can I do from where I'm standing? And I always try and remember that.
I like that, because I think one of the definitions of blame is actually the off-putting of pain and responsibility onto the person that you're blaming. And when you do that, you actually lose control of the situation, because you're saying that person has all the control. There's nothing that can be done. It's very limited thinking to blame. And really, going all the way back to that intention, is taking responsibility for the health and well-being of the students that are in front of you, and coming with your A game, as you called it, or the highest and best version of yourself that thoughtfully responds with love. And that is already going to change the dynamics of your energy, the tone of your voice, when you enter the classroom. And that is just taking responsibility. But that's just taking your control of the situation back. And that feels better right away when you do that. When you're blaming, you lose control. And when you are taking responsibility and being part of the solution, that feels good. And I do want to mention this one story, because you were talking about how, giving everybody a shout out that's listening, you are making a difference in lives. There was an ambassador that was telling me a story about her class, and it was a middle school class. She knew that there was a particular student that was having a very hard time that year. His parents were getting a divorce. He was facing moving out of a place that he'd lived his entire life. His friend group was zilch. He didn't have a lot of support. I think that he may have even been living at a relative's house and sleeping on the couch. I mean, the situation was really bad. And she's a Choose Love teacher. She's very compassionate, and she just really wanted to help this kid. And she's teaching her Choose Love lessons, and everyone had their Choose Love journals out, and they were doing the journal prompts and taking notes in the journal on what she was teaching. And she would walk around, and she had told the kids, and this isn't always the case, the journals are yours. I'm not going to look at them. You can write whatever you want to in them, and you can take them at the end of the year, because I want you to have, a summary of what we've been teaching, because these are lessons you're going to learn for the rest of your life. So she's walking around, and she kind of just notices as she's walking around during the journal prompts that it kind of looks like this young boy is just doodling in his journal. And she's kind of thinking, I am not making an imprint on this person. I want to help him, but I don't think that I'm reaching him. And she was really bothered by this all year, and she just was trying. And she never really thought that she made a difference or connected with him on his level. So at the end of the year, the kids are shuffling out for the summer, and this young man walks by her desk and throws his journal on her desk and said, "I don't want that. You can have it." And she was like, "Well, I said at the beginning of the year that I wasn't going to read them and that they were for you. So I really want you to take it." And he goes, "No, I actually want you to have it." And she said, "Okay, all right, thank you." So I was actually visiting her, and she showed me the journal with tears in her eyes, because that journal had every lesson in it to a certain extent. He was listening, and he was making notes and drawing pictures of how the lessons were influencing him and how he was taking them and literally bringing those lessons into his life. And he had been doing that all year, but outwardly, when she looked at him, it looked like he was very disengaged. He wasn't looking like he was listening. And she, thought she wasn't making a difference, and in actuality she made a huge difference. And he wanted her to know that, but even in the end, he didn't say, like we would expect, "Thank you so much,
Right.
Mr. Rood, for making a difference in my life. I appreciate you so much." It wasn't in words, because a lot of times, that takes a lot, and that takes courage, but it was in, giving this gift, this huge gift to her, because she probably would have always wondered if she had been able to, what happens, because sometimes, the kids do move away and you don't know. But as you said, you are making a huge difference in kids' lives. And I always say, the normal person, this was General Admiral McRaven's commencement speech at the University of Texas, where he tells the kids, as they're graduating, an average person impacts 10,000 people in their lives. And I always tell teachers, you're not average at all. Right. You impact tens of thousands. I mean, generations. The lessons that you give, and especially if you have Choose Love, I mean, that translates immediately into families. We know that kids bring it back into families. We have a family component, but even if the families don't do it, kids are bringing the lessons back into the homes, and then they're going to be teaching their kids. They impact others through the ripple effect. I mean, it's grandparents, it's literally generational. And so I just wanted to reiterate that with that story. You are definitely making a difference. And I think the question is, with your intention as you come into the classroom, are you going to lead with love? I mean, it's the basis of all the choices that we make every single day. Are you going to lead with love? Or are you going to lead with fear? And when you lead with love, you connect at a heartfelt level, and you connect with, the whole child, the whole brain. But when you connect through fear, you're only getting a small part of them. And that is the fear center. That's the freeze, fight, flight, and fawn, because I'm a big fawner in confrontations, and I'm still trying to move through that. But that little part of the brain, that fear center, is what you're connecting with. But that is not the logic and reasoning center. That is not the heart center. And that's so, making that intention, it has to be conscious. And you have to do it every day. You have to remind yourself. That's why I love the concept of a leadership coaching program, because this is something that we all need, if you're blessed enough to be able to have it. And it helps you build and then have that intention every day. And, you follow up with teachers, you give them little strategies like having that reminder on your phone. You have personal experience for decades of not only being where they have been, but in facing the challenges that they face right now in the classroom, which I believe are unprecedented. Do you agree?
Yeah, it's really huge, and I know when we were talking a couple weeks ago in New Jersey, I had mentioned that I'm on some of these teaching groups on Facebook and other places on the web, and I've just noticed a little bit of ratcheting up of just negative talk about what teachers view as what is their job, and it's hard to see, but I definitely understand it. I mean, they're feeling very much unappreciated. They're feeling that they're not making a difference, and I think a lot of it just comes down to that. I'm sure you've seen the studies of why people leave their jobs and all that, and it's the money is rarely even in the top 10. But the
Right.
number one thing is they don't feel like they're a part of a group, and the number two thing is they don't feel like they're making a difference in anybody or anything. And with that kind of disconnection, and I do a training on this on burnout, because really that's what we're seeing is teachers getting burned out. And that comes directly from getting disconnected from your mission. Why are you doing this?
Mhm.
And once you get disconnected from that, and again, I'm not blaming the teachers. It's just, life happens and it's been very stressful. And that causes that disconnection unless you're being intentional about, okay, why am I here? Just like you said, what Oprah has this great saying on the front of her building. I don't know where I heard this, but it might have been from you, but it says you are responsible for the energy you bring into this building. And
Mm.
so everybody, when they walk in,
Ooh.
has to think about it. I think every school should have that. You
Yeah.
are responsible for the energy you're bringing into this school today. So, do a checkup from the neck up, like Zig Ziglar used to say. um, it's so important because it all does come back to intention. And yeah, like the cell phone thing I was talking about, that's just a technique I learned along the way called triggers, and you can use any sort of trigger. um, the Oprah one I would call a doorway trigger, right? So anytime you walk through that doorway, guess what you're thinking about? And you
Mm.
can train yourself. The idea is to train yourself in these habits. Brendan Burchard says he has a line trigger. So anytime he gets in a line, whether it's at the grocery store, whether it's sitting at a stoplight, he has a certain routine that he runs in his head of something he needs to remind himself of how to how he would like to be, how he wants the day to go. And so the same thing. My trigger in the morning is turning off the car. Just the simple act of turning off my car. That triggers, okay, what am I doing today? What's great about today? And what kind of impact can I have today? And then
Mm.
I have, the phone triggers that go off during the day that just sort of remind me that, okay, that's what I'm here for. That's what I'm up to. And it is, it's all about intention. And, we talked about it a little before, but I think honestly, if and I'm the math geek, to my undergraduate degrees in math. So what a great degree! That's awesome. Uh, but, but I remember in physics class that one of the laws of physics is everything will take the path of least resistance if they're just left to their own devices. And I think that's a lot of what we do when we sort of succumb to the fight, flee, or freeze thing. We're looking for the path of least resistance, and that translates over to situations that aren't deadly. So if you're having trouble with maybe a student that's not behaving like you want them to in class, path of least resistance, just to ignore it, right? Just, okay, so I'm not going to deal with that. That's fine. Path of least resistance is blaming the parents. Path of least resistance is just going through the motions. And I'll tell you, that is the killer when we're talking about teachers that are feeling burnt out. And I think that's the other key indicator when I talk to teachers, and coach them, especially the ones that say, hey, I'm starting to feel burned out. 99.9% of the time, the past few months, they've just been going through the motions. They show up at work, they're a warm body. And so I think that if you catch yourself, and again, anyone listening, if this resonates with you, yeah, I've just been, lately just going through the motions just because it's just so hard, you know, that
Or
is
counting
that,
down the days to retirement, right?
right? That is the path to burnout. When you're not infusing each day with some sort of meaning or love or goal, then you're just going through the motions and you are going to get burned out because it's going to be, the water cooler Ain't It Awful Club's going to win. So, and that's what I say. And a lot of teachers, don't know that that they can be intentional. And I think that for some, that's just a revelation. Oh, I can choose how this is going to go. I don't have to be a part of the Ain't It Awful Club. Okay, well, how do I do that? Okay, what we need to do is we just need to remind yourself of what you're up to. Remind yourself of why you became a teacher in the first place. It's connection to that mission and connection to meaning on a daily basis. We all just want, deep down, I think everybody just wants to feel the day, right? When it comes down to it, right? We talk about all the things we want, like money or the new car or whatever, but that's not really what we want. We want the feelings that come with those things. If we think money is going to give us freedom, then we don't really want the money. We want the freedom. If we think that, that new car is going to give us a sense of pride or whatever, we don't really want the car. We want pride. We want other people to be proud of us. And so in the end, every day, we just want to feel the day. And if you think about the best days of your life, those are days where you felt the day, where you got down to the end of the day and said, man, that was a great day. And honestly, it probably wasn't because you earned $5,000 that day. It wasn't because you went out and bought that new car. It's because you were emotionally affected and you were emotionally invested in the day. And so that's my short Reader's Digest version of how to cure burnout, is just start feeling the day. Stop going through the motions. Because if you let yourself go through the motions, that's the path of least resistance, and physics tells us that will go on forever unless you act.
I mean, this stuff is so good, and you have one life. Right. And as teachers, I didn't realize this before, but it's the most important job in the entire world. And I realize that they are boots on the ground and they're seeing all of the issues coming out of COVID, and they're all in their classroom, and they're usually like 20 or 30 of them facing them every single day. But what an opportunity to rise to the occasion and be the best version of yourself and change lives. Everybody has that opportunity because we all connect with people throughout the day. But I mean, teachers are so special. And as you said, and I say the same thing when I talk to audiences, everyone can think of 1 to 3 people that have helped them get to where they are right now. And usually 1, 2, or maybe all of those people are an educator. Educators are so special. They're the most important job in the entire world. Educators are our modern day superheroes if we really see them for what they are. And they deserve to be just lauded, but they also deserve to be given the opportunity to have something like what you're offering through the coaching program and Choose Love. And I just wish, I had a flash when you said Oprah and the fact that she says you're responsible for your energy and the appreciation part. I just had a flash. I visualized myself doing a convocation for a district somewhere and saying, and to show how appreciated you are, I found a sponsor that is going to give each one of you a new car.
Right.
And then throw keys out into the audience. I wish I could do that because that's how appreciative I feel. I just don't have that financial backing, but I'll look for it, by the way. But so this has been incredible. And I never realized a trigger could be a good thing. I have always thought of triggers as a bad thing.
Negative thing, yeah.
Yes. And wow, that is mind exploding that I can start triggering for good things throughout my life. And I'm going to start using that myself. That is really cool. That is awesome.
Awesome.
Rick, I've learned so much from you today. I appreciate you.
Thanks.
So I want you to know how much I appreciate you for everything that you do, not just for Choose Love, but for educators throughout the country and your own students. Appreciate your wife for helping you get to where you are, and
Yes.
and your kids. And I want to thank you for being a really special guest on the Choose Love podcast, and just a really special person and friend to me, always there, always loving and supportive. You live what you teach. I know that from my interactions with you, and I just appreciate that so much. Is there just a last something that you want to share with the audience today?
Well, I mean, for that, let me say right back at you. You've been your story has been an incredible inspiration. Your powers of forgiveness and intention and love are just beyond anything I imagine I'm even capable of. It's just, when I first read the book, Nurturing Healing Love, I was like, what junior varsity problems do I have now? This is ridiculous. And you are such a model for how to live and feel today. So I just appreciate you so much as well. So thank you for having me here today, and thank you for letting me be a part of the Choose Love program, because I really enjoy it.
Thank you so much, Rick. We love you too. And so when we launch this podcast, there will be a link to the coaching program. I encourage everybody to check it out because it is amazing. I want to go through it too, Rick, because I know that I'll learn and grow through it as well. I've looked at it. It's mind-blowing. And the educators that go through it are going to be really blessed by you. So thanks, everybody. And you know what? Thanks for listening. The fact that you have gotten to this point in this podcast and you're listening to Choose Love really proves that you are invested in being the best that you can be, and you're invested for being present for your kids. I appreciate that you're taking this into your classrooms. Appreciate you and all your efforts. And it's also great that just to know there is a group. We are working together to help create the world that we want to live in, one that is safe, one that is peaceful, loving, and kind. And so we are definitely in this together. We were created the Choose Love movement. I created the Choose Love movement to love and support your efforts. So we're here for you. Rick Rood is here for you in such a special and unique way. And we just love you and thank you for everything that you do for our students and for the world. So, and most of all, thank you for choosing love.
Hey, hey, oh. It's all part of us. We can all choose love. It'll lift you up if you let it in. Let the